Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. Before we start today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to remind you all of our risk disclaimer. And in particular, all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Also remind you all there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know that losses can and will and do happen. I'll just say that again, losses can and will and do happen. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at the ES and in particular this VS or volume spike sell setup that we had just after the open today. And I want to look at it because I was covering it in today's MTPredictor training webinar, and we were going through this literally in the last hour or so. And just showing you how you could have been, first of all, prepared for this particular trade setup in advance. So what were the things that you could have been aware of even before the market opened? Well, as normal, we go to the higher time frame chart. For a 3-minute chart, this would be the 15-minute chart. For like a daily chart, it would be a weekly chart. For say a 15-minute forex, it would be hourly. In other words, a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So even before the open happened, and I'll use our training mode to go back to just before the market opened, which was there, we use our DPs, in other words our decision point levels. This was the last swing into yesterday's low. Can you see that? There's the low, there's the last swing into the low. Right mouse click off that high, DP. We have this level on our chart in advance. It's there even before the market opened. So in other words, as the market opened, we can then be wary of this as a particular resistance area. Let's go down to the 3-minute chart and now look at a bit more detail. Whoops. As the market opened, we had our message here saying outside gap up. But was this a real true outside gap? Well, for this we put our high-low close on for the previous day, and if I zoom out a bit, you can see this was the previous day's high. The first 3-minute bar of today, that's that bar there, actually went inside the previous day's range. In other words, it dipped just below the previous day's high. So this wasn't actually an outside gap, it was actually an inside gap. It was an inside gap because the first 3 minutes broke the previous day's range. What do we know about inside gaps? We know that the gap tends to fill. In other words, the market at the very least tends to go back to the previous day's close, which was here. But at MTPredictor we have an advantage because just knowing that the gap's going to fill, you don't know where the gap's going to fill from. In other words, you need an area on your chart of resistance in this case to know or to look for where the reversal or the decline is going to start. And this is where our 15-minute DP helped, because that would have been on the chart and anticipating a resistance area of where you were likely to get short or want to get short. So when this VSL came up, there were two things there in your favor. In other words, at higher time frame resistance, also an outside gap up. Both of them were telling you that the market was likely to decline. So let's place the analysis on. The analysis actually was suggesting the market was going to go further than the gap close. If you traded just the gap close, it would have gone into about there for a plus 2.7R. But the analysis was suggesting the market was going to decline down a bit further into this particular zone here, which is exactly what it did. But before we get and look at the result of this, I also want to look at the 24-hour chart, because these are using the regular trading hours or our day session only. Over the last few MTPredictor webinars, I've been looking at how it's good when lots of different things come together. In other words, the picture's clear on all different time frames and markets. So this is the 24-hour chart. Again, on a 15-minute, here's the last swing into that low. Here's our DP. If I drag that across, just look. In other words, that DP, if I put the two charts side by side, the DP on the 15-minute chart here was also providing resistance just like the DP was on the day session only chart. In other words, both charts were telling you the same thing. In other words, they were both giving you the same story. And when that comes together like that, it has a higher reliability. If I look at the NQ, there was our resistance zone, exactly the same picture telling you the same story, nailing the high. Here's the YM, exactly the same thing, same picture telling you the same story, nailing the high. Slightly frustrating on the YM because there was the same trade setup here that you got stopped out from -1R loss. So if you traded the YM, that would have been a losing trade, which has been slightly frustrating because on the ES the market came down into our first target here where a potential 5.8R profit was available. But when it got to this level here, we then looked to our strength band on our MTP trend. The market had gone beyond the strength band. In other words, this grey strength band here had been exceeded, therefore we swapped to our ATR stop. In other words, our red dots for our trade management. If we now go back to where the market's live, at the very moment now, this would mean still being short, sitting on a approximately 13 or so R profit, with your stop here at approximately 9R profit. In other words, this caught the very high of the day and now is sitting on a very, very large profit, and it's still going. In the webinar, we looked at the next support zone on the higher time frame chart. So if we go to the 15-minute chart, we looked at the support zone of this low, and we said this was an area of where support may come in. And as you can see, the market's gone to here and starting to go through. If you had have wanted to, once the market hit this level, as I suggested in the webinar, you could have started to trail at the 1 bar high. In other words, once it hit this level, just one tick above the previous bar's high. So that would have mean there, then getting stopped out just about here. If you had have done, that would have produced an absolutely amazing 11R profit. So there's several choices on the trade management now. Looking to run it further, currently sitting on 9R profit, or coming out at the 1 bar high and locking in 11R profit. Either way, very, very good trade setups. But can you all see how this trade setup was a good one? Because lots of things were all coming together to tell you the same story. Not only our new MTP trend, which was grey, to allow you to take trade setups on either side, but also you're at high time frame resistance. You're also at an inside gap, also at 24-hour session high time frame resistance as well. Also on the NQ resistance, also on the YM resistance. In other words, all these things were coming together to tell you the same story. When this happens, it has a higher probability. These are the kind of trade setups that are good ones to take. The VS setup and the MTP trend are two of our new tools in our MTPredictor version 8, which is what we're looking at here, which was just being released last week. Going down as the market came down, was there any reason to swap to this long trade here? You can see there's a history triangle here. No, because the MTP trend was red, indicating the large trend was down. Was there any reason to swap to this long trade here? Well, if you had have done, you'd have made 5.7R on the way down, and then you'd have had a losing trade of -1R on the way up, and still been making a nice profit overall. But as I've said, because the MTP trend was strong, in other words, beyond the strength band at this level, rather than looking to reverse here, you should really have been looking to follow with the ATR stop, which as you can see now, it's just clicked down to here and now locking in a potential 10R profit. So a good example of using our new trade setups and new MTP trend indicator in our new version, MTPredictor version 8, which as you can see nailed the high of the day today and has got you in a very profitable short trade as the market is still declining.